Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place in the world during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Ukraine. The Ukrainians during the previous 24 hours attacked the territory of the Russian Federation using hundreds of drones. The Ukrainians started their attack right after the Russians finished their own attack that took place between the 30th and the 40th of March of 2026. And this is the map. I would like to remind you that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see how exactly the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians overnight. And right after the Russians finished this attack, the Ukrainians began attacking deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation using hundreds of drones. And this picture was published by Ukrainian sources at the beginning of this attack, and the Ukrainian sources stated that during the first hours of attack, the Ukrainians used around 180 drones with the purpose to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. And as you can see, according to these roads, the Ukrainians were trying to attack the city of Moscow. And during the previous nights and during the previous day, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation published lots of updates on this matter. The Russians reported that yesterday on the 14th of March between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. of Moscow time, in the Moscow direction mainly, the Russians destroyed 280 drones. So as you can see, this is a very big number. But this morning, the Russians added additional update, and according to the morning updates of the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, overnight the Russians destroyed additional 170 drones. So in total, as you can see, the Russians during the previous 24 hours destroyed 450 drones of the armed force of Ukraine. And I would like to remind you that when talking about yesterday's attack, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians, when they were attacking the territory of Ukraine, used 430 drones. So as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians used more drones to attack the territory of the Russian Federation than the Russians used to attack the territory of Ukraine. As for the morning of the 15th of March of 2026, telling the truth, we haven't received almost anything that can confirm whether the Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage or not. The only thing we know is that the Ukrainians were attacking mainly in the direction of Moscow. A lot of drones were brought down by Russians over Bryansk region, over Oryol region, and so on. At the same time, we received a video from the territory of the city by the name of Davzhansk, which is located in the southern part of the Lugansk region. And here we can see the consequences of attack that was carried out by the Ukrainians. Here we can see explosion. Here we can see the secondary detonation. The sources are saying that the Ukrainians, as a result of attack, most likely with HIMARS missile or maybe with something like this, destroyed this warehouse. And another important thing, that overnight the Ukrainians attacked objects of energy infrastructure in the area of the city of Belgrade, and the sources reported that the Ukrainians used at least 8 HIMARS missiles for these purposes. The Russians, from their side, also attacked the territory of Ukraine. The Russians attacked the territory of Sumy region. We have this picture. According to information we have, the Russians destroyed a train to the south of the city of Sumy that most likely was moving some cargoes or military forces and so on. Furthermore, the Russians attacked several substations and in the area of the city in Gulets, not the substations, but also another train station was attacked by Russians. So as you can see, the Russians are trying to reduce the Ukrainian logistic capabilities and not allow the Ukrainians to redeploy forces, troops and arms from the western parts of Ukraine in the direction of the eastern part. As for the siege of Zaporizhzhia, according to information we have, the Russians also attacked a railway station, train station in this area, and here we can see the video of how Russians were attacking objects of the logistical infrastructure in this area. So as you can see, the Russians these days shift focus from attacks on energy infrastructure to attack on the objects of the logistic infrastructure. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Russians intensified their offensive operation in the direction of the city of Oryol. According to information we have, during the previous night, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly on the eastern Zaporizhzhia flank. So this is the situation by the end of the 14th of March, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 15th of March of 2026. And according to the latest changes, the Russians managed to enter the settlement of Верхняя Терса from the southeast, as you can see. And according to these updates, the Russians managed to capture these farms to the south of the settlement, which means that most likely the Russians are planning to use these farms for additional accumulation of forces with the purpose to move further in the northwestern direction, with the purpose to establish complete control over the settlement. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Rizdvyanka. From these updates that were provided by pro-Russian sources, we can see that the Russians began offensive operation in the direction of the village of Zarnitsa, which is located to the northwest of the settlement of Rizdvyanka, and the Russians began outflanking maneuver in the southwestern direction with the purpose to outflank the settlement of Vozdvizhivka. So we see now the Russians are trying to cut in pincers these two settlements, the settlement of Verkhnya Tersa and the settlement of Vozdvizhivka, with the purpose then to keep advancing further in the southwestern direction to attack the settlement of Preobrazhenka and the Orekhov agglomeration from behind. So it seems that the major battle for the city of Orekhov has begun, and the Russians are very close to finish the battle for the eastern Zaporizhzhia flank, and this will allow them to intensify their offensive operation further. The Ukrainians are trying to stabilize the situation and to destroy the Russian logistic as well. And during the previous 24 hours, this video was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians using drones were attacking trains and railway service of the Russian Federation in the area of the city by the name of Takmak. Here we can see the train that was damaged and attacked by Ukrainian FPV drone, which is a very important situation. And most likely, once again, this train was moving cargo, maybe arms, maybe weapons, to maybe fuel for the forces of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. But we see that Ukrainians are trying to slow down the situation, not to allow the Russians to use their logistic capabilities in full strength. Now let's discuss the situation in the area of the city of Konstantinovka. This is the second place where the Russians improved their positions overnight. This is the end of the 14th of March of 2026, and if you remember, yesterday we discussed that the Russians began bombing and attacking the southern and the southwestern parts of the city, and we discussed this video where we can see something like an artillery preparation from the Russian side, and right after this attack we came to the conclusion that most likely the Russians would try to improve their positions in this part of the city, and we were right, because today we have just additional changes exactly from this area, from this direction. The Russians, according to different pro-Russian sources, improved their position significantly in the area of the village of Vilenka. It seems that the battle for this territory is coming to an end, and the Russians improved their positions in the southern part of the city of Konstantinovka in the area of N20 and N32 road. The Russians are trying to enter the southern industrial zone of the city of Konstantinovka with the purpose to use this territory for further build-up and so on. At the same time, the Ukrainians began redeploying additional reinforcements and reserves in the southern direction, and the Russians attacking and destroying everything they see that use the N20 road and roads between Alexeyevka, Druzhkovka and the city of Konstantinovka itself. As for the other directions, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received almost anything, just several attacks carried out by Russians on positions, temporary deployment points and warehouses of the armed forces of Ukraine through the entire northern direction between the cities of Kharkiv and Sumy. And another important update related to the conflict in Ukraine is coming from the area of the Baltic Sea. According to information we have, more precisely, if you remember, several days ago we discussed that the Sweden forces arrested another tanker of the Russian Federation, or at least the tanker that, according to the European authorities, belonged to the Russian Shadow Fleet. And today the European authorities published this video where we can see how exactly this operation was taking place. We can see the special forces of the European countries that landed on this tanker and arrested it. So this is the second tanker tanker that was arrested by Sweden authorities since the beginning of this year. So we see, and as we discussed during the previous videos, the European countries will intensify their attacks on the Russian vessels and tankers. At least they will intensify this attack on the vessels that probably belong to the shadow fleet of the Russian Federation. So this is something that the European countries will try to use to force the Russians, to force the Iranians to accept demands of the United States of America. As for the Middle East, we continue receiving updates and reports from the President of the United States of America that he managed to win everything that's only possible to win in the conflict with Iran. So he published lots of updates. The United States of America has beaten and completely decimated Iran, both military, economically, and in every other way. So a lot of statements of the same type were published by the United States of America overnight. But at the same time, we continue receiving updates that the Iranians continue attacking military assets and economical assets of the coalitions in this area. And of course, the most important updates once again are coming from the area of the Persian Gulf. During the previous nights, a few more tankers were attacked by the Iranians, and we have additional pictures where we can see the consequences of previous attacks. So here we can see the pictures of tankers that were damaged by the Iranians, and these tankers, according to Iranians, were trying to cross the Strait of Hormuz without additional permission from the Iranian side. Furthermore, we received report that another queue of tankers is collecting or creating behind the Strait of Hormuz. And you know that here we can see a lots of tankers that basically cannot enter the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. And I would like to point your attention that this situation is much worse than the situation with the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, because we understand that most likely every single vessel that is located on the territory of the Strait of Hormuz is either would be attacked by the Iranians or in the end allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz. But the thing is that this queue, which is located to the southeast of the Strait of Hormuz, is also a potential target for the Iranians. The thing that this queue isn't located on the, let's say, western side of the Strait of Hormuz in the area of the Persian Gulf doesn't mean that the Iranians will not attack this queue, let's say, in 1, 2, 3, or 5 weeks, or when the vessels in the area of the Persian Gulf will, let's say, finish, when there's nothing left. Because when talking about this part of the Strait of Hormuz, of the Gulf of Oman, this territory, we need to understand that the Iranians during the previous days attacked probably dozens of times the settlement of, not the settlement, but the port of Fujairah, this one. And during the previous night, this oil infrastructure object was attacked once again by the Iranians. We received lots of pictures and videos from this area. And as you can see, this infrastructural object is located far behind the main queue in the area to the south of Iran. And there are hundreds of vessels and hundreds of tankers that are waiting for their turn to enter the Strait of Hormuz. And once again, we need to understand that Iranians have the possibilities to attack these tankers as well, if there are tankers for them that belong to the coalition assets or something like this. But as I see, and according to reports we receive from the Middle East, it seems that nobody understands this situation and nobody is going to, let's say, move their fleet out of this area, or at least to move their fleet, their vessels, on a safe distance. Another important thing is that the Iranians attacked the city of Dubai. Several buildings related to financial centers of the Middle East were attacked by drones. And as we discussed during the previous video, I believe that tomorrow we'll see the Black Monday. The Black Monday, we believe that the prices will increase significantly, and most likely the prices for oil prices will increase significantly due to attacks on the Hark Island that was carried out by the United States of America yesterday, and due to escalation in the United Arab Emirates, the escalation with the financial centers, and of course the continuation of the blocking of Strait of Hormuz. Tomorrow oil prices may increase significantly, and this can be a very, very big drop. And that's it for the short video. The Military with Summary channel reminds to we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.